Okay, so using Adobe Illustrator, the challenge is this. We have a design, a logo, if you will, that we created for Cortec on the back of a t-shirt. This is a vector line drawing with a series of layers, and the reason you know it's vector is if you go to View and you go to Outline View in Illustrator, you can see that they're all outlines. It's actual outlined artwork. And that's a big deal because when you go back to view, let me go back to preview mode here. When you go to print this, it's really, really, really sharp. As opposed to a rasterized graphic, kind of like this one up here. This is sort of almost like an ink drawing of a shark's jaw. So the concept was that they're going to take a bite out of corrosion. This company advises in the industry for corrosion. One of the many things they do. Cortec ink, but they wanted to have this fun t-shirt for events and such, and we nicknamed him Rusty the Shark. Take a bite out of corrosion. So we want to mimic this style on the front of the shirt with a very small logo. So what I did was I said, all right, well, let's start with this type of a jaw and let's recreate this type of artwork on the front with a smaller logo over the top of this. I call it like an ink blot drawing, if you will. So the first thing I want to do is I want to lock this in position. So in Illustrator, we can go to Command 2, which locks this so that you can't select it. You can only select, in fact, I can even select the logo and lock that as well with Command 2. We haven't decided yet whether we want the web address in there or not. I think we should because, as a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm going to zoom in there. I'm going to change it to a lowercase I as I see this here. So that it's appropriate, because sometimes websites can be case sensitive. In fact, we'll make this one lowercase too, because that's the actual URL. But nonetheless, we're going to, we can always rearrange this later, but I'm going to lock that Command 2 as well. Lock this logo in place. And then what we want to do is start working with layers. So I'll go over to my layers palette here and I'll create a new layer. And sometimes you don't have to name it. I like to name my layers so I can kind of keep track of things. And we're going to call this New Jaw Background. New Jaw Background, okay? So what we can do is there's a number of ways that we can do this. Sometimes you can start with a shape like an oval or a circle or a square and overlay that and start to play around with the shape and adjust it and pull on the, for example, you can grab the handle. I call them handlebars. They're handles like this. You can play around with shapes like this, or we can go freehand. I like to freehand draw some of this stuff, and everything's pretty proportionate. So what I'll do is I'll draw one side of this jaw, and there's a reason I'm using this as a guide. I'll explain that in a second. And I'm going to kind of freehand around this a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take this side of the jaw here, and I'm going to replicate this, and then I'm going to go over here to my reflect tool, and I'm going to reflect this backwards, and we're going to put that over here. So that's one side of it, right? So then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom over here. Now again, we can freehand this without looking at this as a reference, but I like to start with something, and since the client kind of already looked at this and likes the general premise, all I want to do again is create this style of graphic out of this one here. So it's a good starting point. So again, I'm going to replicate this. There. Getting a little sticky there. Okay, then I'm going to reflect that and approximately put that over here as a general guide. So now what I want to do is I want to take these graphics here, and just so I could see the background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the stroke, and I'm going to make that a black stroke over here, and I'm going to take the color out of the center here. That way we have the outlines there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the inside of the jaw as well. So I'm going to approximate it. It doesn't have to be exact because it's kind of like a loose drawing, but keeping in mind where the logo is and all that, I'm probably going to draw this, freehand this in here. Oops. Sometimes it helps to zoom in too. I'll go in here. You grab this little anchor right here. So it's the same deal. Sometimes you gotta play around with this a little bit too. So I'm gonna do that there. Let me show you something really quick though. So I put that over there and I do this line down here. Again, I'm only kind of roughing it in though. I'm not being too literal yet. And what I can do now though is we can actually turn off this background here, see? And we can work with just the new jaw background, right? So I'm going to take this line that I created here, this line here, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to use the mirror tool, or the reflect tool, sorry. It's like a mirror reflection, so I call it the mirror tool. Kind of approximate it over here. So now what I want to do is I want to kind of connect all these together to create this background, because remember, we're working with solid colors. So to get a solid color in the background, what I want to do is turn this off here. And I actually want to go into change my view. So I go to view and I go to outline mode like this. And what I want to do is start connecting these pieces together as smoothly as I can. So I zoom in and I use this tool over here, the pen tool. And I'll go to this anchor here and I'll connect it here. Now see how it makes like a sort of a bend, a hard bend there. You know, sometimes you want to fine tune that. So what I'll do instead of just connecting them is I'll grab this anchor here, and before I connect to this, I'll click it right before it, and I'll move this so it has, again, I call them handlebars, but they have handles, and it makes a slight curve. And then what I do is I hold my Option key down and hit this anchor so that it connects to that, like that. That's like a smoother connection. So then I make my way around it actually. So I'll go up at the top here, and the same thing here is I'll go anchor. Remember that we have the middle point here. We don't want to go down here. We don't want to go up here. We want to maybe not straight across because there's sort of a natural angle to this. So I'll click this over here, and then I'll click this over there, like so. And the same with this. It sort of has a point that it goes to. This isn't bad though. So actually, I need to zoom in even more here. I'm going to angle it down ever so slightly, and then make the connection over there. I'm going to zoom out, go over here. Okay, go down here, and I want to grab this anchor and I want to connect it here. But again, I want to click it right before the anchor point because I don't want it to connect yet. I want to make a slight angle to this line instead of a straight shot. So very, very slight angle. And then I want to connect it. So even that has a teeny bit of a bend to it, which I'm not crazy about. This is when you want to be particular when you're making the outlines so that you're working with good, solid, rounded shapes. So you play around with it as best you can, but don't get too picky. You don't have to get too finicky with it. So let's move over here, pen tool, click here, somewhat of a curve to it, not much. Can always come back to it too. I'm gonna make my way around. Okay, now we have this part here. I'm gonna click the anchor, bend slightly, connect to the other one. Same with this. Now this here, I actually think I'm going to go with a whole curve. So see what happens is it messes up the other curve if I do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here and kind of find the center point and make sort of a curve like that. And then connect to here. So it makes a nice smooth transition. See? Oh, we're missing a point over here. Okay, so let's go over here. So we're going to click this. And then we're gonna join those like that over there. Good. Okay, so now it's all connected. So now we have the whole jaw. So let's go to view, preview mode, and see how we have the lines behind there, right? As a general jaw. And then what we could do is turn on the background like we had it, see? Just to kind of see where we're at. So now what we want to do is we want to grab these two pieces and we want to create a compound path. So you can do object, you can go over to object here and go down to compound path, but I know that it's Command 8. So we do Command 8 to make a compound path. And that means now I can turn off the outline, so there's no outline there. But now that it's a compound path, it's compounded the two pieces together, we just add the fill. So let's select our fill here, and let's do black for that for right now. So see, that's the backdrop. So let's go to the layers and see. So we have the new jaw, can't really see it, but the new jaw background. So we have the black right there. So then what we want to do is we want to start building out layers to make this, again, similar style to this drawing here. And let's break it down. You see how you have a black background, you have a bluish gray overlay, and then you've got lighter bluish gray overlays and little pieces to build and assemble this shark. We have outlines for the teeth with the white centers, and we have a gray, almost a gum area or whatever. And that sort of gives it three-dimensionality to it, but it's a strong vector graphic. So next what I would do is, taking a look at this, is I'm going to make a new layer here, and I'm going to call this teeth. Let's work on the teeth. Now what's cool about this too in Illustrator is in layers you can reassemble. So if I have 100 layers or 10 layers or 5 layers or whatever, we can reassemble these layers. So we can put teeth at the top or the bottom or whatever we want to do. So what I want to start doing now is building the teeth, but we don't want to get too small with the teeth, but we don't want to get too big. I want to stick with something very similar here. So again, we're going to be thinking of the black outline, and nothing too small, because we want it to stand out a little bit too. So what I'm thinking we'll do here for teeth is, let's do, I'm going to change this to teeth background. And what I want to do is kind of zoom in here, is I want to start kind of tracing over these triangles, because that's ultimately what shark teeth are, triangles, but go a little bit bigger over here, like this. See, kind of freestyling this, a bit here. And this is where, being artsy, being able to have drawing skills is important. It's not always necessary, but it's certainly going to have its value to creating this stuff, to have the ability to know how to draw, where to draw, when to draw, and all that. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit over here, and I'm going to create sort of a midway point and draw a loop over here, and then it'll connect with it over here. See, so that's sort of like the backdrop of the black teeth. Now, they're not going to be black teeth. This is just the backdrop to it. I'll explain in a second. And we're going to do the same thing up top here. So I'm going to draw a triangle, sort of a longer triangle, longer than the teeth, which you'll see why in a second. Now, keep in mind, you can always adjust these points later. So I'm sort of approximating it for one. We also want to make sure that these are nice, sharp teeth. After all, it is a shark. Taking a bite out of rust requires sharp teeth. So let's put this here, 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 here. Again, not too particular, but take your time, make sure you're doing it right. You want it to look okay. So now that I have that, I'm going to again create a center point, and I'm going to loop over here with it like this. And then it'll do the same thing here. It automatically creates a sort of an equilateral loop, but in this case here it didn't, and I don't like how this one goes over anyway. So I'm going to undo, which is Command Z, and then I'm going to click and try that again. It's kind of hard to see with the backdrop there. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, so I click that there. So see, that's a general backdrop for the black teeth. And they're not black teeth, but I'm going to call them that for right now. Now I can fine tune it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fine tune these teeth, sort of looking at where the teeth are, in proximity. And I'll show you why that's important in a second here. But when we're arrange these kind of how I want them, as if those, pretend that these are actually the teeth, you know, which they aren't, but let's pretend they are for a second. I'll show you why. And it's the same with the bottom. The bottom ones, I'm not too disappointed with. I mean, I guess I'd arrange maybe a few of them. A few of them look a little bit on the crooked side. And remember, it's kind of a fun drawing, so we don't have to get too crazy. But okay, so there's, we'll call it the tooth backdrop, or the tooth background. Okay, so now we have the tooth background, and we can turn this off. And now we have layers that we can play with, at least, right? So now what we want to do is think about the actual tooth itself. And this may get a little tricky, but we can play around with it a little bit. So what we have is, I'm going to create a new layer, and we're going to call this teeth top white. Okay. So now what we're going to do is create a series of triangles. So we're going to click here, click here, click here. Yeah, we might even zoom in a little bit here. Click, click, click. See, one of the things about hand drawing these is that it takes a lot more time. So, you know, in patience, you know, and a lot of times, you know, you don't have the luxury of time with certain client projects. I mean, excuse me, I just inhaled a piece of ginger. I'm drinking ginger tea. It's very good. Yum, yum. But sometimes it goes down the wrong way. But anyway, sometimes on client jobs, they need something really, really fast, and you rely on stock imagery and visuals because it's already done. It's already created. I used to spend a lot of time on illustration, and I still love illustrating. It's fun, you know, to make something custom. But for example, if you go to some of the stock houses and you want to look for something like this drawing or the other logo I just showed you, you're not going to find it. It's you know, so if you want something customized, you have to literally hand draw it. So that's where the skills come into play. But there are a lot of things, like if you just want a simple shark jaw, you know, you can go to Shutterstock or iStock and find that. And, you know, it's relatively inexpensive. I mean, you want to get royalty free so that you don't get into any trouble using it. And that's what's nice about it. You usually pay fees per month to have a certain number of images, or you pay per image. It kind of depends on its usage too. So for example, if you wanted to use an image just for a general catalog or a brochure or something, it might be part of an image pack where you pay, let's say, a couple $100s for a handful of images. But then there are times where if you're going to use it for a high scale or high-end website, you have to pay extra costs to compensate the company, like Shutterstock, or the artist themselves, for that graphic, and that gives you unlimited use, which is great. But what's really cool about custom artwork is that you basically create it. You are the owner, you are the graphic designer, so you technically own it. But when you sell it or give it to your client as part of a job, assuming you have that agreement, that they then own it, you don't have to worry about getting copyrights and trademarks and all that kind of stuff, because you created it, you own it. So that's important. That's something to think about. It's the same thing with music as it is for photographs or anything that's created. You know, remember, if you get it somewhere else, you don't want to steal it, because that's copyright infringement. You can get in some trouble for that. So remember that I locked these items before, so I can't technically grab them, although that's interesting that that's grabbing. So I'm going to lock it again, Command 2. Okay. So I'm going to grab these black teeth up here. I'm going to group it with Command G. I'm going to grab these over here, Command G. So now those are the teeth. So what we're going to do next is we're going to start looking at this from a color perspective, right? So we have all these different colors. Now, the color of the shark is the color of the shark. I mean, we can't have, you know, gray or blue teeth, and we can't have red teeth, you know, all that kind of stuff. Although blood would be kind of cool. What we want are kind of the whites and grays here. So keeping that in mind, what I'd do now is I'd take the teeth, the bottom teeth, and the top teeth. I go down here to sample, and obviously they're going to be white, so we don't even have to sample that. So we're going to go up here to the color here. We're going to drag the black down to 0%, so they're white. Let's see what happens here if we turn this background off, and we turn the jaw on, and then we turn the teeth background on. So let's take the teeth background that we created, and we'll go over here. Oops, let's turn on the background so we can see it. And we're going to sample the same color, because the same thing I did over here when I drew this is I want to use the same color. So let's use this grayish color here. We're going to sample that. So now when we go up here, see, we have that grayish color, so you can see the teeth first of all. So we're going to start to look at this, because first of all, we can say this: we don't want the black background to be black, because the jaw part of the shark technically is not going to be black. So now that we're looking at this colored, we can say, all right, let's maybe make the background like this kind of a gray. And remember, we got to play around with it until it's something that we like. So let's use the backdrop gray, and then maybe this gray and this gray can be maybe something along these lines. Let's take a look at that. No, I don't like that. So I'm going to grab this gray and then add a little bit more black to it. I mean, it's really what it is black. But what we can do to add, and this is important too, because think about colors with printing. So when we go to the printer, technically it's a black ink and red ink. And these grays can all be just grayscale. So really you have a variety of gray scale, black and red. So technically maybe 2 to 3 colors. My recommendation is just going to go for color though, so that it has a little bit more of a pop to it, right? So what I'm going to do is make what I call a 4-colored gray. So I'm going to add a little bit of cyan, a little bit of magenta, a teeny little bit of yellow, and then a little bit less on the black there, just so it has a little bit of a bluish gray tint to it, if you will. And then this here, you know, the jaw itself, we can kind of play around. Got that darn ginger went down the wrong way again. Gee whiz. So what we can do is sample colors if we want. If we want to make a colored jaw, which I don't think we do. I think we want to stick with these types of colors, you know, for the jaw. So let's stick with the gray, and then see what happens if we turn off the background. See, so it has sort of a similar look and feel to what's going on back there. But what I want to do now is have see how it has multiple layers in the background. That's how this was created. How we drew a background gray and then the black, and you know, just to have the multiple layers. That's really the emphasis of this here. So what I want to do now is, we have the new jaw background, is I want to create yet another background. So I'm going to turn this off here to make it easier to see. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do, well, I don't want to duplicate that. Let me create a new layer. I'm going to call this black background. Okay, so I'm going to move the black background underneath this here, and I'm going to copy this jaw here, and I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to drag this little selected art here piece, and I'm going to drag it to the new layer that I have. See, now this here I want to be, well, we know it's going to be black, so we'll just go the solid black on that, and that will be the background, if you will. So what I'll do now is I'll make this a little bit larger. Now we probably will have to fine tune this. I can tell you that right now. Just make this a little bit larger on all sides, like this. Just kind of play around with it. So what you're going to do is play with your direct selection tool. Actually, that's not terrible. I mean, sometimes what I do is I'll go over here to this direct selection tool, and I will actually grab these points now and start playing around with them, just to make it a little bit more uniform, like that. And you see these little parts right here. See? And then you don't have to redraw it, and it sort of lines up correctly with everything else. So it's the same thing over here. You know, you just literally, by eye, you're moving these things around to make sure that they line up where you want them to go. So You could use these handles here to kind of bring the curves in too. See, sometimes you get these little wacky. That's why I said earlier to be precise as you can, because you get these little oddities like this right here to make this straightened out, because that now transferred on over here to make this weird little bend over here. But it's not terrible. I mean, one of the things about being too picky is it takes a lot of time and really frustrates you. So just make some fine-tune adjustments like that, and see what'll happen now is you're going to start to see where it has a similar, it's going to start to have a similar effect, look and feel to these here. Now, we could technically go like this, gray, black, you know, and then the inside color. But remember, this here, this whole thing is going to be really small on a shirt, so we don't want to overdo it. This is going to be larger on the back, so it'll have more room to show all those different layers. So we want to create something that's a little bit more, I don't know, has a little bit more depth to it. But now that I have the background being the black, like this, I'm actually going to consider changing the inside color here, the teeth background, to the same black color. See how it has a little bit more of an edge? Like if we zoom out, you can see it a lot clearer. See? So now what we want to do is we want to kind of make some jaw highlights, just to kind of bring some proportion to it or some scale to it, for one thing. The other thing too is that you notice on a shark's jaw how it has like a nice clean line and the teeth are showing. Remember, this isn't realistic, so that's not super important. But what we want to do now is kind of zoom in here, kind of fine tune the teeth. So what I want to do is turn off the background. And now what we do is we take the direct selection tool and we kind of fine tune the points like this. And this may be a little bit more of the tedious part of the project, but it's important because, you know, it's line art and you want it to be somewhat precise. So you'll see the difference here in a second. But see how this is crooked right here? You know, this tooth here. So we want to kind of line these up. Now, there are a lot of different ways to do this artwork. There are artists all over the world that do these things in all kinds of different ways. I'm moving this whole triangle. This is just one of many, many ways of doing this kind of stuff. You know, there are all kinds of tricks of the trade. So I'm just showing you some of the ways here. So this is drawing, pulling the direct selection anchors into position. You could technically, so see zooming out, see how they're a little bit straighter. You could technically delete these top ones, right? And then grab your anchor point here and then make them curved like this to make it a little bit more like a tooth. You know, those are little details. I mean, I actually kind of like that, but that's going to take a little bit more time to do. So I'm going to start without it because I don't know. I want to make sure that this is something the client likes. And let's say they like it and they want to go with it. I might suggest, well, let me fine tune it a little bit. So there's a couple of considerations when creating these drawings. Is, you know, obviously you want to create a good piece of art and you want to do your best work. But you don't want to overdo it because sometimes there is such a thing as being overdone. You know, for example, let's just say this logo isn't that forward facing. Like not a lot of people are going to see it. So it's only going to be on a few shirts kind of thing, right? Versus, is Rusty the Shark logo going to be prominent? It's going to be something they use for years. They use it on the website. They use it on collateral material and other places. And I believe the answer is yes to that. So what I want to do then is make sure that it's good and it works for years. There, so see, those are some of the top teeth. And I would do the same with the bottom one. Now, some styles require having them to be crooked. There are some abstract drawings and artwork that I do on purpose to be crooked, just because of the style that it is. But this one here, I want to make like I made the other one. So this one has sort of a precise look to it. You know, the more I say that, the more I say, well, maybe I should curve the bottom of these teeth too. In fact, I'll show you how to do that sort of in line, so it's a little bit easier after I show you how I'm adjusting these teeth. Let's see, moving these around. Now, it's much easier to work with shapes, of course. And also, there are a lot of great drawing tools. I can show you later a lot of great automated tools, and Illustrator and all the other programs have. In fact, outside of the Adobe Suite, there's a lot of great tools that allow you to draw really, really cool stuff, especially when you're talking about 3D and animation and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of automation out there to make things, but the customization part is where they struggle. There's not really a place where you can kind of fine tune as well as you can here. And I like Illustrator just because of a couple reasons. One is I've been using it for years, but the other reason is that it's just really well designed. It's really well designed. So looking at that there, see, so if I want to go back and make curves on all the teeth, let's start with 3. So I grab this middle bar here, this middle path, they call it. You delete that path, delete that path, delete that path. So now, if we were to view this in outline view, you'd see that there's no connection right there. So in fact, I can even draw these while I'm in this view here. So click and hold, and then drag and just make a slight arc there. Click here, draw a slight arc there, click here, draw a slight arc there. So now when I go back to view, I do preview, it just has more of a rounded look to it. Now, I don't know, you might not notice the difference and you might not care. I kind of like that, so I'm going to kind of go with that. So it's actually pretty easy to do, right? So I'm just going to grab the direct selection tool and I'm going to delete, and delete. Then I'm going to grab my pen tool and I'm going to click and drag, just making slight circles. So it's kind of reminds me of the shape of like a candy corn kind of shape, or just a triangle with a curved out top part where the tooth goes into the gum. Now I've drawn, and I'm going to adjust this one here. I'm not crazy about the positioning. Same here. Now I've drawn a lot of realistic artwork. One of my favorite things to do is to do that. So you get a client who has a good sized budget and they want to create something really, really cool, like a hand-drawn piece of art. That's one of my favorite things to do. It's like the ultimate challenge. So drawing this stuff would be pretty meticulous, and there would be a lot of layers involved to make it realistic. So you take your time, and give yourself days, lots of days. Don't try to do it all in one day, because it'll come out so much better when you get some breathing room and some perspective to just kind of get away from it for a day and come back to it. Oh, got to do this one too. Okay, so that's the curve. So that's the I want to adjust this one too. Adjust this one here. Okay, so that's the curved teeth versus the bottom ones that aren't. You can slightly see the difference. I see the difference. I kind of like it, so I'm going to continue and do the bottom while I explain some other stuff to you. So let's get rid of these bottom ones. Now it might be easier for you to go into view and go to outline view and delete all of these, because you could see them a lot easier. The challenge with this view, though, when you go to outline view, is that it's very easy to grab something else by mistake just because it's right there in front of you. And you also can't really see very easily the color. And sometimes you need to see the color just to get the right idea of how much curve to put on there, because I can't see the white shape on the black background very easy, so it's very hard to tell. But I know approximately what I want this to look like, so I'm just going to add these bottoms over here really quick. It's so much easier to work with shapes than it is with ballparking. In fact, I'll show you an example of the ballparking, as I call it, which is sort of like estimating where I want the shapes in the rest of the jaw, because there's a little guesswork involved. There's a little bit of artistic skill that goes into making things look a certain way, as opposed to working with shapes or just simple. So let's go back to view. Let's change the view back to preview mode. Yeah, so see, I need to make a few adjustments here. So I'm holding my option key down, and it goes to the last tool that it remembers, so I can kind of fine tune these things. This one's a problem. This little bugger in here. Maybe move this one over, this one over, this one over, this one over like this. Okay, so zoom out. See, so it's starting to look a little more sharky, right? So now let's turn our background on again, so we can see. Now, see, even these, I call them. I mean, you call it a lot of things, like a dot sketch or a pen and ink sketch over here. You can see the shading and the shadows. So we achieved that. We achieved that with the other drawing over here by showing, you know, see the shading on the teeth, and they're just shapes and colors and things. Even in the gills, the gill slits over here, I used 2 different colors over here to give it, again, some 3-dimensionality. It's just a style of layering to create. But again, we don't want to over layer because, well, because again, it's going to be on a t-shirt very, very small. But we do want to have some kind of variation of color on there to give it some dimensionality. So what I'll do, and again, you can turn these off. See, this is the white part of the teeth background. You can play around with all of these things here. But we're going to create a new layer, and I'm going to create a, let's call it jaw shading. And I'm just going to start playing around by eye. I'm going to have like, actually what I might do, yeah, I think I will. I'm going to turn all of these off, except for that one there. And I'm going to use this particular graphic here as an eyeball for something to at least play around with. I'll show you what I mean. So let's say I want to do that here. And I see that there's going to be some gray shapes over here. So I'm going to go here. Right now they're white, but you get the gist. So I'm going to draw some shapes over here. That. See, what else do we have? I mean, we could technically add some shading over here as well, and maybe down here on the bottom as well. So maybe what I'll do is I'll add a couple of pieces down here, and I want to make them curved, just so they don't look cheesy. Same with this one here. I'm gonna sort of eyeball these. Remember, these are different styles, different artistic styles. So there's going to be some guesswork and playing around here. So let's, for the sake of making it easier to see, let me grab this. I'm going to deselect. Grab this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece. There's 4. Say there's 5 parts. I'm going to group them. Let's make that blue, cyan for a second here. Actually, let's make it dark blue so we can see it. So now what I want to do is I want to grab, I'm going to use my Option key, I'm going to drag this, and then I'm going to create the mirror over here, or the reflect tool, sorry. And we're going to reflect that over here on this side of the jaw as well, like that. And as I'm looking at this, you can see that we have some shading up top here too. So I don't know what I want to do with that yet to make that three-dimensional, more three-dimensional. I might, for example, go here and create somewhat of a curve point up here, like so. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. So then I'll do this with my Option key. I'll go to my reflect tool here. Put that over here. Just kind of eyeballing where I want to put things, just to add some more dimension to this. And we don't want too many pieces, because it's going to be very difficult for the printer to work with this, especially on a t-shirt. T-shirts can be a bugger to print, so I think I will add another piece here. It's part of the jaw. We can always revise this later. Back to the reflect tool. Put that over there. So now we're going to fine tune it on our own drawing. Let's see, let me look at this. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So now we're going to turn this off, and you can see there, that's lovely. So now we're going to open up our other layers, and you can see we're going to have to make some adjustments, right? So maybe move this over here, this over here. Let's unselect. So I'm doing Command-Shift-G for ungrouping them, right? Same with this. because I want the freedom to move these pieces to approximately where they are. Now it's got smart guides on. You see the line that goes across the screen. It kind of lines these things up, which is good because you want it to be somewhat proportionate, right? So these aren't bad. This one I want to move over here. Top ones probably, actually they weren't bad the way they were. I'm gonna leave it where it is. Now, one of the things you could do is lock these layers here, put a little lock on it, right? And then grab all of these blue chunks and group it, Command G. And again, it's on this jaw shading layer. So now that I have them all grouped, I'm gonna grab it, use my eyedropper tool, and I'm gonna select this gray background to match that gray, right? And then I'm gonna add a little more black to it, see? See, so that'll add some dimensionality to it, see? So now that we have that there, now remember, I do want to use somewhat of the 4-color gray though. Remember we talked about that earlier. So I have let me unlock all these now too. So let me grab this one here. In fact, yeah, that sort of disappeared. So let me go to this new jaw background, and I'm going to add a little more blue. See what happens if you add too much blue. We don't want too much blue in there. So we'll add a little bit, like maybe 7% cyan, maybe 5%, we'll go a little less, 3% magenta, and then maybe if we go yellow, look what happens. See how, yuck. We don't want to get it green or anything. So maybe even no yellow. Maybe we'll just stick with that. So 7, 3, and 30. Now grab these again and use the eyedropper tool to use that same coloration and just simply add a little bit more black to it. Does the same thing, but maybe a teeny bit more blue. So a teeny bit more magenta. Maybe a little bit more of the black there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. So see, that definitely is more of a unified shark jaw. Makes it a little bit easier to see. It's more pronounced. One thing I can see though, as I'm looking at this, is somewhat I'm thinking maybe if I have a black background under here, how would that look? You know, so for example, let's add another layer here. Let me create it because I don't know if I'm going to like this. So here's what I do is I literally will sort of freestyle this a little bit here, and actually not even get too crazy. Just like. I might even just do this just to show you what I'm talking about here. You know, so let's say we do that and I create that black there. You know, do I want to add somewhat of a dimensionality back there? I think I do. So let's experiment here. Let me turn on the background a second here and see again. We're looking closer to that, and I think, you know, as you see here with the teeth too, that we have, you know, a lot of white space between the teeth. So we could do that too, but I like the variation or the separation of teeth because when it's a smaller logo, it starts to look more like a shark. But I think I do want to have somewhat of a background on the inside of the jaw. So I'm definitely going to go for that. So what I'm going to do instead of this, I'm going to get rid of this little chunk here, this little sloppy chunk. And I want to have this same shape on the inside but smaller. So I'll show you a trick. I'm going to copy this layer here, this new jaw background, and I'm going to paste it over here, and I'm going to go to compound path. Can't see the whole screen here, but I'm going to release it. I only want this centerpiece. So what I'm going to do, actually no, that's not true. I actually want, here's what I want to do. I'm going to delete this background. I'm going to take this piece here and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. And I'm only going to color it darker so I can see it. And I'm going to send it to the background like this. Actually, I'm going to send it to the foreground. And I'm going to make it smaller than the other piece. You see? Kind of like this. All right, so then I have these two pieces here. And we don't want to get too crazy with the size of it. We can fine tune it too. But let me do this. Let me just grab these two pieces. And now I'm going to go back to compound path. So you go to object, compound path, and you make. And And it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Oh, that's why. I wanted to do the other kind of path there. Oh, why isn't this working? That's bizarre. What's going on here, folks? What's going on here? Oh, did I create the wrong compound path? I think I did. No, it's released. Clipping mask. No, I wanna make this a compound path. Huh. Why isn't this? Okay, what we're going to do instead is we're going to add this background layer. We're going to call this layer 7. Let me put this as background of entire jaw. Intuiter, spelled that wrong. Entire jaw. Okay. So I'm going to use my pen tool, and here I want, I could pick up and copy that background exactly as I have it. But what I really want is I want to kind of eyeball this because I don't want it to go all the way across the teeth either. So I'm actually going to grab a point here, an anchor point here, and I'm going to kind of mimic this curve here. And it's the same with this here. I'm going to, actually, let me do this here. Oops. Make this curve. A little tricky. The hand stuff, the hand-eye stuff is really tricky because you want it to be smooth, but you also don't want to drive yourself crazy either. So I'm going to grab this here. I'm going to continue my curve over here. And these are just pieces per se, so you can afford to kind of be a little bit more forgiving with yourself. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to start picking up over here. I'll show you what I mean by this. This is going to make sense in a minute. So I'll grab this. Now, let's color this. Let's use the eyedropper tool and pick up the background color like that. See what's happening here? So I'm not sure I like the fact that it goes over the teeth like that. I like how it has it in the background of the jaw. So that's easy to fix. Because see, it's in the background there. Is I can actually change these points now. Go more like that. Kind of blend into the tooth. See? It just gives the inner or back part of the inner jaw a little bit more dimensionality to it. So I'll probably do the same thing approximately over here. I'm going to go like this here. Add some black color there. And then I'm going to curve around like this. And then I'll probably end it around this same area here with this tooth here, but I'll add a little bit of a curve to it. Boom, boom, boom. See, again, the sloppiness, and this isn't necessarily sloppy, but see how it added some dimension to the jaw structure there, right? And even though this shape might not be straight on the straight and narrow, we can take our time to do that, and I would go into outline mode and do that. But being that these all will overlap that anyway, see, these pieces are almost irrelevant, see? And we can still fine tune it so that they kind of match up, kind of sync up or whatever. So at this point here, I'm kind of liking where this is headed here. So I might actually stop soon and share this with the customer, the client, the customer, and see what they think. But I do want to fine tune it. So now that I have this background layer on, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to object unlock all. And I'm going to turn off all of these layers. And I want to take this old shark jaw. I'm going to put that off of the white space over here. And I'm going to get rid of this one too. Now the difference, by the way, so what I did was I had a roughed up Cortec logo here and a plain Cortec logo. And then I have the website and then without the website. So I'm going to do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our new jaw like this. And I am going to, let's see, I'm going to copy, well, before I do that, I want to fine tune some things. So first off, I want to take this logo and I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Tricky, so it fits sort of inside of the jaw, like that. Yeah, kind of like that there. And put the URL under it. And then going through it. So now you want to fine tune it. Now you want to go in and now you can kind of nitpick your own work if you want. You know, I mean, I might move some of the pieces, you know, just looking at this here. Now you could make the blacker part stand out a little bit more, which makes it more prominent of a tooth. Or you could keep that and you could certainly extend out the black like this too, which isn't a bad idea actually. Makes the points a little bit more, with all puns aside, it gets to the point. Because remember, when this is printed on a t-shirt, it's going to be using a different ink or a screen print or whatever that kind of melts onto the t-shirt. So the more black ink you have there, the more the white behind it will stand out. So I'm just going to fine tune these a little bit more. See how they look a little bit sharper, a little bit more prominent? And I'll do that to the same on the bottom here. So I'm going to make that a little bit larger there. I'm not crazy about this tooth being like this. So I'm going to zoom into it. Don't be afraid to zoom into your work. And we're going to add that there. Change the curve a little bit. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. All right, so then I can make this here. Change the tips a little bit more. Just to make it a little more sharky. Right? Drag these up. Now you can spend a lot of time on this or a little bit of time on this. I mean, I've literally taken drawings like this and spent days on them to just fine tune and perfect them. But it depends on the job, it depends on the client, depends on the budget, depends on, you know, what it's going to be used for. You know, how much time you want to spend. But see, just those little refinements. Again, picturing this thing really small, you want the teeth to stand out, right? So what I would do now is I would take, let me just double check a few things. I want to look through all this. Yeah, I'm happy with it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of this here collectively, grab their logo and their URL, and I'm going to group it. So now it's literally all grouped. Still in different layer. Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, wait a second. I stand corrected, folks. Let's not group that. See what happens is it goes all to one layer. So let me undo that. Command Z. Command Z. Command Z. There. See now, because what we want to have is all of this on different layers in case we did want to fine tune things. See? So let's keep it on their own layers, but what I'll do is I'll grab it all, grab their logo, hold the shift key down, and basically ungrabbing the URL and their logo. I'm holding the option key down and I'm dragging with the shift key over here to make a duplicate. And what I'll do is I'll take this ragged logo, make that a little smaller, and position that over here as well. So now we have two choices. We have the ragged logo or the clean logo with the URL on it. So what I can do now is present the idea to the client and see if it's something they like. So I'm going to center these in here. Keep that one there. I'm keeping that one here because we're definitely going with this. This one's going to be on the back. And we kind of have it sort of look similar look and feel. So that's how you get a shark jaw drawn, basics, to look similar to the other drawing. Thank you.